Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee Talking this morning. Guys, it has been a fantastic week, a better week than last week. Why? Because I got another contract closed. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Helps you with your overall progress in your tech and your sales career, guys. So it is January the 22nd, and I have a good session in store for you guys today. Here's the thing. I'm bringing in a good brother of mine who I've known since 2018. He's been rocking with me ever since I started the Black Heights channel. And I met this gentleman through a good brother of ours, O'Shea Duke Jackson. O'Shea and Billy went to or lived in Sacramento together. And they've been friends for a long time. And I got an opportunity to meet O'Shea when I first started the channel, and he connected Billy and I. But guys, what I wanted to do in this show today is to introduce Mr. Billy Roe, who is a good friend of mine, and he's going to talk to us about his journey in life, as well as his journey in writing a book. He has published a book, and he's going to come on this show today to talk to us about what was the inspiration behind writing the book and what is the book all about. And he's also going to give us access to that book as well, too. So, guys, without further ado, let me do this and bring in brother Billy Roe, man. How are you doing, brother? How are you doing?
Good morning, brother Wade. Man, I'm doing fabulous. This Saturday is semi-early. You know, we're early risers, so it's
Yes.
semi-early, but I'm just excited, man. This is the first opportunity I get to share the baby, and I definitely am interested and excited about doing so today.
Absolutely. So tell us this. Tell us, everybody, a little bit about yourself, man. Who's Mr. Billy Roe? And for all the people who don't know you, right? Obviously, you've come on this channel before, but it's been a long time since you've been on the channel outside of you coming into the panels and stuff like that. And people have seen you. But for the people who don't know who Mr. Billy Roe, who's going to come across this video, who is Mr. Billy Roe? Talk about that.
Billy Roe is an everyday person. Really, that's who I am. I always believe that people are people. We're humans. We have our human experiences, love, loss, happiness, sadness, all those things. But I would say the height of who I am is I'm a deep thinker. A person who is just in love with the process of thought, but not just thought for the sake of thought, but the thought for the sake of action. So I'm always a person who's thinking and have all these new ideas that are rolling in my head. And one of the things about those ideas is I'll wake up, I'll jot them down, and I'll just get them out on paper so that way I can begin to manifest them.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, I'm a friend, I'm a lover, I'm a brother, I'm a son. I'm just like everybody else. I just happen to be in a space currently where I'm writing a book. And there's a reason why I start with the humanity side of who I am versus a title of who I am. Because the book talks a lot about that, and in our connection with one another. It's not about what we do, it's about who we are, and just really working to redefine that.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Very, very, very good. Tell people about where you're from, man, where you grew up at and kind of your background, brother.
Woo! Grew up in Sacramento, California, in DPH, Del Paso Heights. For those who are familiar with the area, I lived there, man, I think I lived in the Heights since I was like 2 months, and then left there when I was about 20 years old. Grew up in a household with my mother and my father for the most part. They separated when I was 16. But still, I mean, I had them for the majority of my life as in the same household. Went to literally school with the same people from first grade all the way through 12th grade. So I have a lot of deep friendships from there, a lot of deep connections in Del Paso Heights. And then later on, obviously, I grew up and I moved out of the Heights, owned a home in Sacramento for a while. And then about 4 years ago, almost going on 5 years ago now, I recently relocated to Utah. And so I've been living in Utah for almost the last 5 years. I work professionally as an analyst. A lot of number crunching, a lot of data and techie stuff that definitely aligns when I'm listening to what Brother Wade has going on Black Heights. But my passion, honestly, has been writing and inspiration, and it's been that for close to a decade at this point now. And so, really, I just, like I said, I grew up in a simple neighborhood. We were middle class America, maybe sometimes even in poverty. But overall, at the end of the day, now I'm doing pretty well for myself. I'm not doing as high as I would like to be, but I'm doing pretty well for myself in life, whether it's financially, emotionally, mentally. There's a lot of stability in my life right now in this moment. And so just taking advantage of the opportunity to share with others.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. And you got to tell me this, Mr. Rowe. You got to tell me this, brother. So you have set out on a journey to do something that's pretty remarkable. Write a book, right? Like, before we get into, the title of the book and so forth, like what was it that inspired you to become an author? And not only that, like what was the inspiration behind it?
So it started actually in Del Paso Heights, and it's interesting because I was having this conversation the other day with a really good friend of mine. I have a YouTube channel, First Row, and it's a play on words. That's where Antoine and I actually also connected previously. But before First Row, there was just Facebook posts, inspirational Facebook posts. And before the inspirational Facebook posts, I used to host a mastermind. And the mastermind started off in like this unused space in a barbershop in Del Paso Heights. And I mean, I had to go in and clean the space before we started utilizing it. And then we brought everybody there, and it was like, okay, we had this conversation that was just like, here's the topic. Let's just talk about it and see where it goes.
Yep.
And it just kind of blossomed from there to where I actually went and got a co-working space to where I had a physical, actual conference room that I could utilize for the talks. And then it started going into inspirational content. Then I started doing inspirational speaking engagements. And then fast forward, I launched First Row on YouTube, and all of a sudden the content just blew up. Not as far as like necessarily popularity blew up, but just the robustness of the content blew up. The structure, the layout, it just became so much more intentional. That last year, when I kind of had the choice to, do we want to do more content, or how do we want to do more content? I had a really good friend of mine who I believe is in the chat, Carolyn Michelle. I had her say, it's time to write your book. It's time to write your book. And I was like, because I've always, whenever she brings up a book, I've always been like, I don't really need to write a book. I don't really want to write a book. Tons of ideas for books. I probably have 8 book ideas in my Google Drive that I just kind of look at and keep kind of moving along. But it was finally to the place where it was like, okay, let's write this book. And, we're competitive. So, yep. Of course, she challenges me. You could be done by December if you start right now. And I'm like, let me get my calendar out. Hold my cup. Let me get my calendar.
Oh gosh.
So that brought on a level of focus for writing that I've never engaged with before. And all of a sudden, all the content, all the story, all the idea, all the research just started really just falling into place. Like, it was like building Legos, man. You just had a Lego block and you intuitively knew where it was supposed to go. And so I just became really intentional. And over about a 10-month period, all of a sudden it was like, man, the manuscript is done. Like,
wow. Wow, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So, you got to tell us this. What is the name of the book, and why did you come up with the title for it?
So the name of the book is Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. And the reason why I came up with the title was actually from my own personal experience. So I came to Utah before I was an analyst in California, and I wasn't in the environment that was right for me. Analysis is the right environment for me. I enjoy analysis, but the individual that I worked directly below my director, that I directly reported to, it just was not the right environment for me to work in. It was going to get me in trouble because I'm pretty atypical as far as I'm going to say what's on my mind. And if you say something sideways, I'm going to say, so what do you mean by this sideways comment? So just kind of in that experience that I had of going to work, not feeling fulfilled, going to work, feeling like, why am I going to work? Feeling like, am I going to go to work today? All those emotions that I was dealing with in that moment eventually led to me resigning from that job. And I don't mean like, oh, I just resigned and I took another job. No, I didn't even have another job in place. I was just like, I know this is no longer the place for me. And so having that moment in your life where you go from like making decent money to zero, it's very revitalizing. And so making that transition, like all of a sudden it was like, I was taught, don't quit a job before you have a job. And here I am quitting what my parents would say, hey, you got a good job. What is you doing? Here I am quitting that job and don't really know where the next foot is going to land. But I just knew that at that point in my life, I had such a high level of respect for the value that I bring to any team that it was like, wherever I land at, I'll thrive there just the same. So that's where that book idea came from. It was like, people always say, oh, I quit. And it wasn't until actually I started writing this book that I was like, I fired that job. I said, yeah, we're done. And I fired it. And what took place after is a bunch of space came available for my passion to really begin to flourish. And it began to flourish because I had the space, or I lost the space of like negativity that was dragging me down, dragging myself into work day in and day out for a job that really wasn't fulfilling me.
Wow. That is absolutely amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So this came up with, the need of, going through a life change like this and you finding the need to kind of bounce back and do something different. So talk about this, right? So what were some of the challenges in, writing a book? Like what were some of the biggest challenges and obstacles that you've had, Billy, to kind of go down this path?
Probably time and fatigue. Those were the two largest obstacles. I'm really good about organizing thoughts. So, I used mind mapping to like literally segment out how I wanted to write the book, where I wanted to go, how I wanted to start, where I wanted to land. But when you're working a full-time job, that puts demands on you inside regular work hours and outside of regular work hours. I know you understand. But when you're working a job that has that, it's like, okay, you're using leftover time, what time you have left in the day. And so what I had to start doing was waking up extremely early because that's when I'm most creative. And so before I would wake up and I'd get ready and I'd start work. And right now, fortunately, we're working from home. But I'd start work and it'd be like, okay, I dedicate all this creative energy and space to my job. And so what I started doing was waking up a little bit earlier and getting in the office and starting my writing process with all that creative energy, because the job is it's data. It doesn't really change. You just got to ask for the data that you want and then do what you need to do. But the creative energy and the space that I have, what I was finding is like when I get done with work and then try to start writing in the afternoon, it was a lot more difficult for me to write in the afternoon. So I just started waking up early and I bought time on the front end. And I think that's what, if there's anything that you want to do and the time may not be available, you have to figure out where you're going to get that time from. Obviously, I still have to provide a means for myself. But at the same time, if this is something that I want to do, then I need to make sure that I'm waking up early. And what actually took place is that it became a habit. So I went from having to set an alarm at 5 o'clock to wake up to my brain saying, hey, I think it's about 5 o'clock. Why don't we wake up and do some writing? And it became so much a habit that when I finished the book, the next day, when I completed the manuscript, the next day I woke up and I was like, oh, I need to go in there and work on the book. And I got out of bed. And then when I got ready to step to the office, I was like, I'm done writing the book.
Exactly.
Dang. So
what else I do at this time?
Right. You can now try to find something else to do with this energy and time that you have.
That is dope. I just remember this, Billy, when I started grad school, um, and one of the things that I wanted to figure out was how to obviously find time to study while working full time, while also being a husband and being a father as well too. And one of the things that I learned to do was to wake up early. That was the only time that I can actually do, and I was actually very similar to you. I woke up at about 4:30 and got my studying done at that point in time, right? And it was like 2 hours. That was the 6:30, and I would hit the gym and then kind of go from there. But yeah, that was the a pivotal point in my life as well too, because like you said, something that you mentioned, when you want to do something, you leave yourself no excuses, and you just got to get up and do it. And then ultimately it becomes a habit. And then before you know it, like you're getting all the things that you want to do accomplish. And, and after that, you have a good amount of success from there. I like that you actually said that, because that's something that I use myself. And I just say this, the first thing when you wake up and you make the first thing that you do a priority, that shows how bad you want it. That shows
Right.
how bad you want it, right? Like, now one of the things that I'm doing right now is, I started back getting up early in the morning to even work out, right? Because health is, back in my number one priority and stuff like that, right? So you just got to get up in the morning and get it done. I love
Right.
that you said that. So talk to us about this. What are some of the, if you were to kind of summarize the different chapters in this book, what are some learnings, right? I don't want you to give the book away, but I want you to start talking about different parts of the book so that we can, get people inspired to go out here and make this purchase and so forth. Talk to us about some learning points in the book.
I always start with the first learning point, because this is a point I'm willing to share with everybody. And actually, you can go to the website and download chapter 1 of the book. If you subscribe to the website, you can download chapter 1 of the book and read the entire first chapter of the book. But the very first learning point that I addressed in this is living beyond our means. And in the living beyond our means concept, because the book is about firing job behaviors, you might fire your job at the end of it, depending on how you feel about your job, but it's about firing job behaviors and job mentalities. And so the first job mentality that I address is living beyond your means. And I look at it this way because when I had my first job in high school, I worked for Blockbuster Video. I was this kid who didn't need money. My parents paid all the bills. It wasn't like I had to pay a bill in the household or anything like that. It was just like, oh, I want to go and get a job. I want my own money. And so I took this job at Blockbuster Video, and then I got a car, which then came with car insurance that my parents weren't paying for, which then came with gas, which fortunately was only 99 cents a gallon at the time. Obviously, times have changed. And
a lot more now.
Right. then I got a pager. And so it was like all these things were beginning to lock me in from being a kid who didn't need a job to having to have that job to maintain the things that I had now acquired. And so when this behavior takes place and it goes unchecked from childhood all the way into like 30s, 40s, 50s, it's a behavior just like waking up early can become a habit. It's a behavior that can become a habit if left unchecked. Yep. And so what happens, and this, fortunately, I just made a different decision and pivoted. But what happens is now I'm at the job a couple of years back where I'm not happy and I'm miserable. But because I've overextended myself and lived so far beyond my means, I can't afford to quit. And so now I have to drag myself in, and now I have to go. And now if my boss chews me out, I have to sit there and take that. I can't speak up. So that is what like the first job mentality is. And that's what I talk about firing is firing that mentality that locks you into decisions that maybe are healthy for you in the moment, but later on are not healthy for you. And you need to have a way to say, this is enough and it's time to move on. I'm a firm believer that things have seasons. Some friendships are forever. Some friendships are for a season. When you're messing with a friendship that's out of season, you're messing with spoiled fruit, and that spoiled fruit makes you sick. It doesn't add value or nutrients to your life like ripe, fresh fruit would. And so the book itself talks about concepts like that, but it only talks about concepts like that in the first 4 chapters.
Let's stay on that concept. Let's stay on that concept, Billy, because there's many people who there's many people who are in situations like this, right? Where, they don't like their job, right? They put themselves too far in the debt. They wake up every single morning not feeling, good about the work that they're doing. They want to get into tech and stuff like that. Like, what do you suggest to these people, with the frameworks around your book that you talk about that can really help these people?
I would say the first thing is once you're in debt, it's not too late, but there's some work to do. A lot of people want instantaneous results. And unfortunately, if you're already in debt, you got some fat to trim before you can actually say, okay, I got a piece of meat that's lean enough so I can make some different decisions. So some of it is just having the mental fortitude. Like, you're going to have the mental fortitude to say, okay, I still have to do this. But then the next question you need to ask yourself is, how do I begin to not have to do this?
Yep.
Like, what are the steps I need to take? And once you understand like, okay, this is where I need to get to, then you can begin to start making that shift of the pendulum and swing to the other side to where then your job does become an option. What I will say also, though, because what I love about your channel's content is you're given like all the nuggets, just the chunky nuggets of like tech and how to thrive, how to build, how to have upward mobility in the workplace. Some of the plan doesn't have to be necessarily trimming the fat as far as eliminating bills. Some of the plan is, how do I increase my value? And you can do that academically. You can do that with your work ethic. You can do that with certifications. There's so many different ways to increase your value in order to help you overcome if you've overextended yourself. So that for me is one of the biggest things, is really just saying, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. What are the things I can start doing today? Even if I can't leave today, even if I can't fire my job today, what are the things I can start doing today to help with that? And it might be I wake up in the morning an hour earlier and I go on LinkedIn and start building networking relationships with companies that I could see myself working for. It might be that. It's something that's free. It costs one thing, time. And your time goes wherever you choose for it to go. So that, for me, that's like the base level of really addressing living beyond your means.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And, for somebody getting out of college, right? I want to ask this question too, Billy, for somebody getting out of college, like, to avoid this sort of scenario, like, what is a suggestion that you would, give them to, not get to a point where they have so much debt and, to have to, worry about getting into a career and having to do this stuff over time. And it's not, towards more of a feature. It's just really to, sustain a livelihood. What are some of the nuggets you would give somebody that are coming directly out of college? So we've got a lot of people who are, watch this channel who are in college and looking to graduate. And what are some of the things that you would give them?
The first thing I would give them, especially if they're going into tech where you're probably going to land above six figures right off the jump.
Yep.
The first thing I would give them is be modest about what you're spending and then invest in yourself. So normally people say invest in yourself first, right? Invest yourself first, pay yourself first, and all those things. That's really hard for a kid to do who has nothing. Like, I'm just coming out of college. There's some things that I need to get. There's some things that I need to purchase. I need to get maybe my residence. Maybe I'm moving from the dorm out into like my first apartment. There's some expenses that you're going to have, but you can choose to be modest about those expenses. You don't have to have all the bells, whistles. I think a lot of times what happens is when you get out of school and you get this job and now you're making money, you go from like working at Enterprise or working at Starbucks to like, okay, I got a real job and I'm making some real money now. It's like, we kind of want to show off. Like, we kind of want to say, look, mama, I made it.
Right? Ooh, go out there and buy that nice Infinity G35. That was me. That was me, guys. I'm gonna tell you like this. That was me. It was me. It wasn't brand new, but it was me, right? And you have a $600, dollar payment in your hand, and you're just making, $48,000 a year. Don't get me wrong, you can afford it, but is it the wise move? Continue on, brother. Go ahead, continue on.
No, trust me, I understand. I see it happen all the time. But
yep.
that's the first thing is figure out how to live modestly and then invest. Because what will happen is over time, that investment will begin to free the need for you to either live modestly or to rely on the job to provide the income.
Mm,
Um, and the best time to really do this is when you're first given that influx of money. So
mm,
when I moved to Utah, I got a substantial increase in pay. I got a substantial reduction in cost of living, and I had the choice to either ball out, travel, go wherever I wanted to go, when I wanted to go, buy whatever I wanted to buy, when I wanted to buy it, or just continue to live a decent quality of life. And I chose to live a decent quality of life. I had a choice between going to an apartment complex where they had valet trash, where they would come to my door and take my trash to the trash for me. I was like, yeah, I got feet. I could walk down some steps and make it. It's not worth $300 more a month to just have somebody take my trash out.
yeah.
And so you got to make those types of decisions and really, if anything, the biggest piece of advice I would give people coming straight out of school is you're going to have to make the decision. Is it going to be about ego and flashiness, or is it going to be about your future? Because that's why you went to school, right? It's because you wanted a better future. So why off the rip mess that up?
That's true. That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And that's something that, I don't think I talk about enough, Billy. And, I probably should hit on a lot more because that's the financial piece of it where, I later on in my career, I started to develop that mindset that, hey, you know what? It's not about, how you look, what kind of car you drive. It's about the kind of moves that you're going to be making to set yourself up long term to live a very comfortable life, when you want to, or matter of fact, or like you said, fire your job when you really want to, right? Or either get to the point where you have, your side hustle or your side business becomes your main source of income and you're passionate about it when you are really hiring your passion at that point in time. Right. If I would have known that earlier, all this stuff earlier, I probably would have been, 10 years ahead. But, you figure it out during life and I've done very well for myself. But it's just that level of education. And now having somebody like you who can actually come on here and kind of talk about that, we're giving people the game a little bit early. Hey, guys, when you come out of school, you're making 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a year. They'll go out there and splurge on a new car. Right. If anything, you can buy a piece of real estate. That's probably the best thing that you probably could do. House hack. Right. You get that money and get somebody else to pay for your mortgage. Get somebody else to do this so that at any point in time, you can fire your job if you don't like it. You can do something else. You can have the freedoms to wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning and still continue to get a paycheck because you have investments that are set up for you the correct way. Let's do this. Before we continue on. Let's go to the chat. What's up? We got Mark Anthony in the house. What's up, brother? We got Casual Economist in the house as well, too. We got Professor Black Ops in the house, man. HEB Sparkling Waters in the house. Miss Wade said I had something in my nose. She told me to clean myself up, guys. That's what she came in here, brought me some new coffee, too, as well. We have Key Bryant in the house. Good morning, fellas. What's up, Key? Long time no see. Miss Tara is in the house. Miss Tara Lynn is in the house. We got Mr. Roe in here as well, too, actually interacting with the chats. I see. What's up, brother Benader? How are you doing? Coming to us from the UK. Mr. Marcus. Mr. Marcus is in the house as well, too. Brother Jabron is in the house, man. Look at that. Coming to us from all the way from the Pittsburgh area, man. Brother Christian's in the house as well, too. Blind guy, his wife, they're like, thank you so much for the super chat. Congratulations on the book, Mr. Rowe. Thanks for being here. Absolutely, man. He's going to be dropping some more nuggets with us as well, too. Jamarly is in the house, man. Jamarly is doing some wonderful things. I saw he had a nice little LinkedIn post most recently. Just absolutely killing it. Blind guy's wife says that the people are making sweet potato pancakes for all the kids, but enjoying the coffee too. Oh, sweet potato pancakes. That sounds fantastic, actually. Wow, Laquita, you actually doing some good cooking today. Well, you always do some good cooking. Benny's in the house. I saw Benny last night. We had dinner. We had some good dinner last night. Him and Brother Damien from the Patreon. We had a good time last night. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Brother Ben. What else? Key Bryant says, good morning. Okay. Oh, Ashton James, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Congratulations on the book, Mr. Rowe. Really like the title. We'll definitely be purchasing a copy. Thanks, BH, for bringing this to your channel. I appreciate that. That's the first chapter leaves you begging for more. Oh, yes. He's going to talk about some other ones. Adding time early in your day to reach your goals is a key recipe for winning. That's not an unticked box at the end of the day. Okay. Don't forget to hit the like button. Absolutely, guys. Make sure you hit that like button. Miss Wade let's get everybody to hit that like button, Miss Wade. Let's send some reminders out. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. And thank you so much as well, Christian, for helping out with that. Miss Brandy Stevens is in the house. Great day, fellow Lot Climbers. I love this topic. Thank you for sharing this information. Absolutely. PBO says, first purchase, Toyota Celica, sunroof, bag phone, Coogee sweater. He went with the Coogee sweater. I love it. Oh God, Coogee. Oh God, that's straight old school, but that is so dope, though. I love that. Absolutely love that. Professor Black, Jabron said you balled out, man. He did. First 500, first purchase, $5,000 Toyota Camry. Rocked the car until the wheels fall. Today Cannabis said he bought him a car too, man. Like it's so funny how we go out there and do this sort of stuff, right? And it's not the smartest thing for us to do, but it's almost like a sign of like a badge of success or something like that. You got to go out there, get that new car, you got to floss and so forth, right? And it's not the wisest move. I mean, I must say this, it's not the wisest move, but I get why people go out there and do it. I just say this, right? If you can, if I would have still had the Mazda 626 that I was riding in, till the muffler fell off, I probably would have been a better investment choice, or, continue to get it
Right.
fixed and stuff like that instead of selling it or trading it in. But, because here's the thing, when I bought my car, I wasn't driving it. I mean, I bought the car with 11,000 miles on it, right? And in 4 years, only had like 27,000 miles because I wasn't driving it. I was always traveling. Right. So, yes, when I sold it and Teresa and I upgraded to, I did the 4-door sedan at that point in time. Right. Didn't have to need to be in the coupe anymore. But there wasn't a need for me to have a car like that, especially when you're traveling. Right. And yes, on the weekends, or I didn't drive it in the wintertime because it was too cold and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best decision for me, guys. Key Bryant says financial debt. Yes. Black America Television News and information. What's happening? Hey, what's good? What's up? And we'll get information this morning. I can't read. Blind Gail's in the house as well too. Gail is in the house. Thank you so much for stopping through. Wholeheartedly Fish. Good morning. Thank you both for this incredible talk. Thank you. So continue on, Mr. Rowe. Tell us about the next phases of the book, and kind of, give us a little bit more insight into now, if somebody has to, make make the mistake like many of us do make in our early careers, and, get ourselves in a position where we have to consistently go into the office and work and work and work. What are you talking about next to help guide them into, getting back on a correct path and making sure that they're going to set themselves up for success after they've made that mistake? Talk about that.
So after we move through what I call the first chapters, the layoffs, after we move through the layoffs, we move into a space called the interviews. And that's really trying to figure out the foundation. In the many conversations that I've had with people in regards to their passions, a lot of people don't know what their passion is. They're just like, well, I go to work and then I take care of the kids, or then I go and do this. And they have a routine, but they don't know where their passion falls in that routine, or even if their passion is in that routine. So the second area that the book begins to address is, how are we going to establish what our passion is? How are we going to set the groundwork so that way, after we discover what our passion is, how we can build upon that? And so it goes from really removing behaviors to almost like gathering supplies. If you were going to build a house, you would buy some wood, you would buy concrete, you would buy electric cord or electric wires. You'd buy the things that you need to build that house. You wouldn't just jump on the land and say, okay, everybody, we're going to build a house. You would come to the land with supplies. And really that's what the second section of the book begins to look at, is what are the supplies we are going to need. One of the supplies in the second section that's really critical is emotional intelligence. After you have the network, after you've gotten rid of job mentalities, and this is just like with college, now that you have the education, you have to be able to execute with what you know in a way that connects with people. Other than that, you're not going to have enough allies in the workspace to truly thrive and strive, or strive and thrive. And so that's what the second portion of the book really looks at. It looks at how can we get these resources in place and ready So that way, when we do begin to engage with our passion, we can take off and thrive with it.
Got it. So, that's, that's going to be very helpful for somebody who finds himself in a position like this, and, want to get out of a hole. I almost look at it as, right, you buried yourself in the hole for the most part. Now you're trying to get out of the hole. Now you want to build, something on top of that. That's going to be absolutely amazing to be able to do that and, be able to hear some of the steps that they can actually take. What is some things that you can actually leak, in the book right now, Billy, that will be able to help with that?
So let's stay in the emotional intelligence space, because I really enjoy that space. It really is about figuring out your default emotion. And there's, you can go into reading emotional intelligence and probably find like 400 core emotional intelligence competencies that you can really dive into. But I really keep it very simple in the book, and I only address 5 core emotions. And in addressing those, what I'm looking at is, how do I interact with each one, and what does each one mean in regards to acting as this compass for what I'm currently doing. And so my default emotion is anger. Like, if you hurt me, I'm angry about it. If I'm happy, I'm happy. But if I'm sad, I'm angry. I'm grumpy. So I had to really do a lot of deep dive work with myself to get through the layers of things to really determine that, oh, wow, my default emotion is anger. And a lot of that comes from the neighborhood I grew up in. Like, if you didn't have this default emotion of anger, that means when people try to pick on you, they're going to take your milk money. They're going to take your popcorn money. They're going to take your Hostess snack in your lunchbox. Like, they're going to take things from you. And so you have to create this defense to protect yourself. And the defense was, when I get angry, people get scared and they leave me alone and don't take the things that I want to keep. But unfortunately, when that's what you're practicing and that's what you're nurturing over years and years and years and years of your life, because I mean, school alone is 12 years. Yep. So you practice defending yourself and, hulking out when any kind of controversy or conflict comes your way. All of a sudden, now you're an adult, and that's really all you know how to do is interact with anger when you're dealing with negative circumstances. And so really that for me is like one of the nuggets that I'm willing to leak about the book, that I feel is something that people can start addressing today. Whether you read the book or not, you can start addressing today the work that you need to do to find out how you react and why in some circumstances you are more reactive than proactive.
And that takes a lot of self-searching as well too, right? And trying to understand yourself. You think about that. I love the fact that you're talking about emotional intelligence, because that is very key in order for you to have the success that you want in your professional life as well as your personal life as well too, right? Growing up in certain neighborhoods and things like that, where you had to use some sort of physical intimidation to stop other people from taking your stuff. Really, in some aspects of it, it can hurt the impact that you would have if you were to use that same tactic within the professional world, right? Because that's not what you do in a professional environment. But I understand it when you are in an environment where it's like, okay, well, man, I'm not going to eat today because this guy's going to take my cookie. If he takes my cookie, I'm going to knock his ass out, right? Like, I've had to deal with that before. I've had to deal with that before earlier on. And it's like, okay, well, how do you stop yourself from going down this path? But what you find out really, though, Billy, is that, environments a lot of us grew up in, that was the norm. And you find out when you're outside of that environment that that's not the norm. Right. In certain places. So, it does take a lot of soul searching in something like that. But also it takes a recognition and a need to practice, how you can actually overcome something like that. right?
Right.
And because it's emotional intelligence, it's very important. Being able to control your emotions, being able to be on top of your emotions helps you with making logical decisions. And when you are responsible for millions of dollars, or you're responsible for people and the livelihoods of other people, you have to maintain a good, sound balance. And emotional intelligence is very important. Talk to people about some of the ways that you've been able to improve on your emotional intelligence, Billy.
Whew. That's how. Did you see that breath I took?
A little bit of yoga, a little bit of therapy.
Yeah,
deep breath practicing.
It honestly, it sounds simple, but really breathing. I use breathing because breathing gives you a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions fire really rapidly, and there's not a lot of delay between us feeling an emotion and typically responding to it. Like, as a kid, you took my cookie. The emotion is you took something from me. I'm angry about it. I punch you. There's no, and it's a seamless transaction. It's boom, you're punched because you took my cookie.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I have had to learn to take a pause, like intentional pause, because what you'll find is in that pause, it gives you a brief space to say, okay, is this the genuine emotion or is this the default emotion? And I'm telling you, for myself at least, 9 times out of 10, it's the default emotion, where I'm like, oh, I'm angry about that. And then I stop and I take that pause and I say, well, why am I angry about that? And then it stops making sense. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense to be angry about that for that. Okay. And so I go through this process of really trying to validate why I'm angry. And I think a lot of times what we do is we try to invalidate our emotions. Oh, I'm not sad. Oh, I'm good. And we do that a lot as men because, I grew up, you told, what are you crying for? Don't be a crybaby, right? So you have this emotional cap that says you can't go beyond this. You can't go into sensitivity. Those emotions don't apply to you. And so having that cap, it's allowed me to say, okay, I'm going to use the cap in a different way, though. I'm going to try to validate the emotion. And because I'm an analyst, because I'm logical, what happens is it's like, well, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So you're angry because this, or you're angry because of that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I'm hurt. Oh no, I'm sad. But the combative nature of my default emotion wants to try to take over so that I don't have to use this other underdeveloped emotion to try to manage this process that I'm going through. So really it's about creating that small gap of intentional space. And the more you practice it, the better you become at using that intentional space to be able to determine what your emotions really are trying to tell you.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Something that Key Bryant says it's a survival emotion. And he's absolutely right. Right. Wholeheartedly. Tish says, can't wait to read your book, Billy. Terrelyn says the introspection piece would be a major break in everyone's mindset foundation. Absolutely. Absolutely. Before the Beans in the house as well, too, man. Check him out. Before the Beans in the house. Another EP publishing company says, question, Billy, now that you have published your first book, what do you feel is the next big goal on your horizon for you?
With the book, the next big goal is national bestseller.
There we go.
I'm pushing, man. I'm pushing because I feel like not for the recognition portion of it, but my goal has always been service. And what got me into inspiration was having these deeper conversations with myself, with my circle, with my tribe, and then trying to get that information and that growth to other people, because it didn't make sense to just keep that in my small circle and we're all thriving and growing and bubbling, but then everybody that's outside doesn't have the opportunity, can't force you to take it, but doesn't have the opportunity to eat and grow as well.
Yep.
And so for me, the national bestseller, what that does for me is it puts the book in a space to where people I don't know, people that I wouldn't reach, people that only read national bestsellers, now have the opportunity to at least see that book is there and available for them. Because I feel like a lot of people can resonate with the title "Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion." A lot of people.
Yes, a lot of people. I remember when you told me about the title. I mean, this was, a couple months ago, and you were just talking to me about, the different parts of the book, and I was like, man, you got to send me a copy. I'm ready to read this thing right away, man. So let's do this. Let's take some questions from the chats, guys. Whatever questions that you guys have, send them within the chat itself. And I want to talk about this, Billy. So, where can, now that we've talked about a good portion of the book, you want to become a national bestseller, where can individuals go to purchase this brand new book and this lifetime piece from Mr. Roe? Something that you are very passionate about, something that I'm passionate about, something that's going to be able to help give the game and change people's lives. Where can people go to purchase this book, my brother?
So right now it's available for pre-sale on firstrow.com. You can see hopefully the name, 1stwroe.com. You can go there. Again, you can subscribe and get the first chapter for free. I'm all for it. You can try it before you buy it. But you can also order the book there as a pre-sale. The pre-sale, you can either order the book, or actually one of the things that I did is I created a guided reading journal to go with the book, because there's a lot of exercises in the book, and the guided reading journal kind of structures those exercises so you're not doing a lot of the extra work that I had to do when I was writing the book. It's like, no, here you go. All you have to do is you have your book, your journal, you pick that up, you pick up your pen, and you can jump right into the exercise that's being presented in that moment. But you can absolutely pick it up there. The book will ship February 15th. So we are about 24 days out before the book ships. But everybody who does pre-order the book will actually receive a signed copy of the book.
Ooh, which is going to be worth millions of dollars one day too, brother.
Let's do it.
So do this, brother Roe. Type the link in the chat for people who can actually go there and go ahead and start to pre-order the book. So let's also talk about this. Obviously with many of you guys who are Patreon members, right? When Mr. Roe and brother Roe and I started to talk about this, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is you're a Patreon member of Black Heights, you get access to this book as well too. And Mr. Roe is going to help me with a coupon code that I'll be able to share with the patrons inside the Patreon inside the Patreon community. That'll help you guys out on the purchase of this as well too. So Mr. Rowe's going to, give that to me relatively soon, and I'll have that posted within the Patreon group as well too. I want you guys to go ahead and get yourself a copy of it. I already have it in pre-order already. That's something that when Mr. Rowe sent it to me right away, I was like, I got to go and, and pre-order. So tell me this, Mr. Rowe, how is the, how are the pre-orders going so far?
Oh man, they're, so it's funny because being a first-time author, you don't know what to expect. And I'm thinking like, okay, your mama's gonna buy the book, your sister's gonna buy the book, got a couple friends that are gonna buy the book. And when I tell you the outpouring of love that has been shown to this book, like hard copies, I started off with hard copies and soft copies. At this point, hard copies are sold out. I can't even pre-sell a hard copy right now. All I can pre-sell is soft copies or paperback books. And it's just like the number that I had in my mind when I was like, okay, let me get a couple of hard copy books because I like hard copy books. I want to have that as an option available. Here I'm thinking like only a couple people are going to probably want a hard copy book. And to be at a place where now it's sold out, you're just like, man, that happened. That happened. And to still see the book is selling, like the book, there's book sales every day. Since the day that I've released the pre-sale, there's been book sales every day. And what really like warms my heart is that some of these book sales are names of people that I have never met.
Mm, mm.
And it's like, it's almost like surreal and overwhelming. It's almost just like when I woke up and thought I had to do more work to write the book. It's now that surrealness of, oh, that part is done. Now it's like we're to the next part in this journey, and the outpouring of love and the outpouring of support and the outpouring of those who truly feel like they need a book like this, man, it's a wonderful feeling. Honestly, it's a wonderful feeling. And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to bring a passion project of my own to the world that resonates so strongly with others.
I love that. I love that. Guys, go ahead and check out the First Row website, www.firstrow.com. I want to make sure that Mr. Rowe gets at least 10 pre-orders booked today, guys. I mean, like, that is something that will be very helpful. Obviously, when you pour into a book like this and you put your life's history, you put your the wisdom that you've earned over the time or learned over the time, right? Over many years, right? Into a book like this, that's, going to be helpful for people at all levels. It's a huge accomplishment. And how do you reward people for their accomplishments? You go and support them. So we want to make sure that we're supporting Mr. Rowe, guys. Go out there and go and get your pre-order on. For you patrons, people who are patrons, just wait for a bit, and I'll get you guys the code and so forth, so that you guys can go and purchase it there. But I want to make sure we get Mr. Rowe. Obviously, we reward him for his major accomplishment and the successes that he's had in life. And not only that, just wanted to come on here and share his story. He comes on here and give us the game many weekends, many weekdays as well too. Talking about the things that he does in his professional career and the things that he's done in his life overall. So guys, let's make sure we take care of Mr. Rowe and really show our support for the accomplishment of doing a book. That's something that I want to do one day. I want to create a book. Mr. Rowe is going to be my guide and my mentor when I get to that spot, whenever that is in my life. But that's a huge accomplishment that I want to make sure that we're supporting Brother Rowe. Let's go to some of the questions now. So we got a question, man. First Row, this is a very solid information, right on time. I'm in the process of going from a SQL developer to a web developer. Absolutely, Christian. And Christian is grinding it out right now. We're getting everything squared away with his resume and his cover letters and so forth. And Christian's going to be doing an interview process pretty soon as well. Nice. Britta Cisco, Chris Cisco says, Cisco V says, congratulations on your book, Billy. Definitely looking forward to reading it. Is there going to be an audio version? That's a very good question.
Yes, there will be an audio version. It won't be released right away. The 3 releases right away will be a not the hardcover anymore, but hardcover, soft cover, and then eventually we'll release the ebook. The audio book takes time because we have to go into the studio, record all that stuff, and then get that into the right format. So it takes a little longer to get that out. But there will be an audio version. My fear of the audio version, because I believe in transparency, is that because of the nature of the exercises, it's kind of hard to multitask this book. And in all honesty, I feel like our passion deserves a center stage. And so, like, sometimes people will listen to audiobooks or Audible, and they will be doing other things. And when you're doing other things and trying to listen to information, you kind of miss tidbits of that information. Not that you won't get the book as a whole, but you might miss some nuggets that were specifically beneficial to yourself. But there will be an audible version of the book in the future.
Wonderful. Christian had the same exact question as well too, so we already answered that. Adrian Nash is in the house. How are you doing? Thank you so much for stopping in with us today. Christian Alexander said, good luck. I went that route. Great level. That's where PBO said that to Christian. Absolutely. They got another question in here. Question is, do you recommend other people getting into writing?
Absolutely. There's a couple universal recommendations that I'll make. I will always agree with Brother Antoine Wade about getting into tech. I will always agree that you should move from wherever you grew up from, very far from there, to experience something different. And I will always recommend that you write a book. The level of growth and development that writing a book produces in an individual, man, it's phenomenal. And there's been times, because as a writer, you have to read your work over and over again at the end of the process, not even while you're doing the process, at the end of the process. There's been times where I've read even this book in editing and things of that nature, and I've been like, who wrote that? Who took the time to put those words there? Because the words resonate with me so strongly, even though I'm the writer. And what that showed me in the writing process is that there's these moments of genius that you have that when you're writing, you can capture. But when you're just living your day-to-day life, you might have this eureka moment, and then it subsides and you continue to live your life and you lose the eureka. And so for me, I would recommend every single individual takes a moment in life to engage with that creative component of their mind and just see the robust amount of knowledge that you have within yourself.
I love that. I absolutely love that answer. Blind guy, his wife, their life has a question. What are your strategies to get into the bestseller status? Book signings, public talks, or plugging into other events, networks? Are you also dancing with folks who aren't watching?
So for the strategy for bestsellers is really about understanding what the metrics are that you have to hit. So knowing how many states you have to have, knowing how many copies you have to sell, knowing which ISBN number matters, like all those things. That's like the logistics of it, or the data, the analysis of it. But overall, the marketing strategy of hitting a bestseller is about doing things like this, being on Black Heights, speaking about the book. One of the I present extra as an extrovert, but I'm an introvert. Like my introvert energy has to recharge me in silence. So one of the things that was really challenging for me was like when the rubber hit the road and it was like, okay, we're going to go to publishing and put this book into the real world. Like, it's one thing to write a book and then be done and not share that book. It's a completely different thing to have a book that has so much vulnerability of yourself in it and to share that with the world. And so what ended up happening to me was like, I got to a place where it's like, am I going to release this book? And then I was like, man, just do it. And so I did it. And then it was like, okay, now I'm in the process, and it's an investment to publish a book. Now I'm in the process of the investment financially for the book. I moved out of time investment to financial investment. And I get to this space where it's like, I have to tell myself, you're going to market this book, because my normal personality is not one who's like, oh, I want to brag about this book that I wrote. I want to talk and tell everybody about this book that I wrote. And I really had to really shift that paradigm within me and say, Billy, you created something that helped you. Why would you not share that with the world? And it's not boastful. It's not arrogance. It's not conceit. It is truly, again, taking that approach of, I want to be of service, and to be of service, I'm doing a disservice if I don't market this book the way that it needs to be marketed. So yes, there will be signings, there will be public talks, there will be workshops, there'll be tons of things. I already have 3 different speaking engagements on my calendar already. But outside of that, it's about really having intentionality and really like blasting not just social media, but like when somebody says, hey, I'm your friend and I want to help you. How can I help you? Coming up with creative ideas and say, well, hey, can you start a book club with my book? Like, can you launch a book club and let my book be your first book that your book club uses?
I love that.
Like, now in my mind, that's like one friend that I love and care about and know, and maybe 4 other people that I don't know, but I do care that they get this information. That's the strategy on trying to get to that national bestseller point. Also, another part of the strategy is pre-sales because it allows me to prime the pump or prime the pipeline to have sales in queue for when the timer starts on the national bestseller clock.
Love
And
it.
then, yes, I'm always dancing. I love dance. So it's just moments of honestly, I want to say the word is gratitude. There's just moments of gratitude for being able to make it through this process. As Brother Wade said, this is not something that I just sat down and said, I want to write a book today. And at the end of that day, I was done. This is a process that took about 10 months. And in the course of 10 months, you guys all know, life doesn't stop. Challenges don't stop coming. Bills don't stop coming due. So there are moments where I get to sit and rest and say, man, I'm super proud of this first step in a major accomplishment. But at the end of the day, the work doesn't stop. And I have to still do marketing and still do interviews and still do all the other things that are going to drive my goals.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that, Billy. We got another question coming in from Jamarley. Jamarley says, as a self-taught data analyst, how do you convey your skills in an interview?
Well, so in an interview that's regarding data analysis, I will always tell them what technologies I'm familiar with. And I also research before I go into interviews. So like, for instance, where I work at now is was a SQL environment. Now we're a Teradata environment. But where I work at now is a Teradata environment. But when I was interviewing, it was SQL. I hadn't worked in a live SQL environment. I had been an analyst for over almost 7 years at the time, but I hadn't worked in the live SQL environment because in the area that I was working, they required us to ask IT, hey, I need this query. Can you get me this information? Boom. Okay, I got the reports. Well, what I did work in was an Excel environment, and I did Excel automation, which is VBA coding. So when I did my research and started looking at what SQL code looked like, I was like, oh, there's a lot of similarities between VBA coding and automation in Excel and SQL. It's just understanding the nuances of the language. So when I went into the interview and they were like, well, how does, what's your experience with SQL? I don't know very much about SQL. I have used W3 Schools to kind of look and start understanding it because it allows you to practice with it. That's a great website if you're new to tech. W3 Schools will give you like working SQL code that it'll show you how to do it. It'll let you type it in and see if it comes out with the results that you want. That is an amazing tool to use. But what they then said was, okay, he understands the concept of SQL. So when you did your VBA coding, were you just clicking record on your macros? And when your macros you type in all the stuff and then you just run back the macro? I was like, when I started, that's how I learned about macros. But at this point in my life, I'm able to type in the code from scratch. And so they understood that I truly had an understanding of VBA. And if I could understand VBA, then it wasn't an extreme leap for me to gain the confidence and the intelligence in the SQL realm. So that's how I always do it. And again, it's about knowing your value, knowing what a company is going to get when they hire you. I know they get a phenomenal employee when they hire me. I don't have any doubt about that. So if you're going to get a phenomenal employee, you're going to get somebody who's honestly not going to be in this role forever, because my whole purpose of being in any organization is to ascend. It's not to just stay on the same level.
I love that. That's what we call ladder climbing, man. That's exactly
Yes,
what we
sir.
call ladder climbing, brother. All right. Keith says, in the process of writing Fire Your Job and Hire Your Passion, was it a therapeutic experience for you? What were some of the revelations you learned about yourself or subjects in the book?
Oh,
Great
absolutely
question.
therapeutic.
Great question.
Absolutely therapeutic. It became my zen, man. Like all the data number crunching, it just allowed my mind to shift out of a hard 0 and 1 space to actually like organic creation or organic creativity space. I think one of the biggest things goes back to that emotional intelligence part, where understanding that I had this default emotion that had just been running unchecked for 40 years. Like that's a long time for an emotion to just kind of have its way. And so what it taught me was now is to have a little more patience with myself when I don't get it right. Okay, you're still new to this emotion. So that's why it's so hard for you to just grasp it and use it as strong as you would the iron fist. Well, of course, because I'm new to it. And so it's given me a perspective of having a little more grace for myself. And I think also the book, the therapeutic nature of the book allows me to shed more insight to who I truly am, because I think people just think, oh, he's on YouTube and he's confident and he's very articulate, and they think these things about me, and they think I don't have insecurities, that I don't have shortcomings. They think that there's like this perfection, and there's not. There's this human that is behind every experience that I'm involved with.
I love that. And that's, I say this all the time, right? Especially with being on YouTube and, being able to put yourself out there like that. It's fearful to turn on the camera every single day, no matter how comfortable you get with it, right? And it's a learning lesson for yourself also, but it's also a huge accomplishment because, you realize that it's a step forward in the right direction. And the more you do something, the better you are going to become at it. Whether it's writing, whether it's turning on YouTube, whether it's talking, whether it's trying to articulate a message, whether it's debating, it's all something that you will ultimately get better at. And if you are a person that has a growth mindset, you're going to constantly look at yourself, and you're going to also want to continue to polish yourself over time. So I love the fact that you said that too, Mr. Rowe. Adrian Nash says, well, how about that? I've got a story to tell of resiliency in overcoming. Absolutely.
Do it.
Go ahead and do it. Absolutely. Miss Janet Rose says, can't wait to get my copy. That must be a family member, brother. Yeah, they're awesome. My story. Terrellin says, writing gives you the opportunity to receive yourself. There's no better feeling experience. That's wonderful. Mark Anthony says, question for Billy. Do you want to sell your book in large stores like Barnes and Nobles?
Yes, it will be in Barnes and Nobles, on Amazon, things like that, or places like that. I think for me, I'm about connectivity. And this is why there's certain aspects of my book, certain parts of my book, like for instance, you can buy a combo of the book and the journal. You can only buy that on firstrow.com. And there's the reason for that is because I'm about connectivity. I'm about being able to connect with the people that are reading. Honestly, they are entering a portion of my life that some of my friends don't even have access to yet. And so Barnes and Nobles, as great as a Barnes and Noble review would be, or an Amazon review would be, I want to connect with people. I don't want to lose the person that I am in the process. And so though I will be in large retailers, my overall goal and mission is to drive as many people as I can to firstrow.com. Because that is where the connection and the connective tissue for me is at. That gives me, like, if somebody subscribes to First Row, and for instance, the subscribers to firstrow.com, I was able to put this out there and say, hey, look, this interview has taken place. If you have questions about the book, if you want to know a little bit about the journey, that's where that's going to happen. That's not going to happen in Barnes and Nobles. That's not going to happen in Amazon. No dig to those platforms. I'll take a sell from them just like I'll take a sell from firstrow.com. But I'm all about the connectivity and the connective tissue. I didn't put a book out in order to simply make money and make sales. I put a book out so that I can connect with people more deeply and expand my influence.
I love that. Billy is for the people, man. Billy is going to be running for Utah mayor soon as well, too, brother.
Oh,
I see politics in your future. Billy's like, hell no.
Nah.
Oh, gosh. Let's see who else. We got some other questions in here. Christian Alexander has a question, too. Did you take a writing course before writing your book, or did you just have the natural talent of a writer?
It's a great question. So here we go, Antoine, because we always talk about certifications, education, and getting degrees that you do not need degrees.
You didn't get you didn't get bachelor's in writing,
right,
to write a book.
So to answer that question, Christian, no, I did not. And it's no dig to anybody who wants to do those things. But as I said before, it's an investment to publish a book. It costs quite a bit of money to publish a book. And so me spending that money to do the classes and things of that nature, it would have been an even greater expense, and probably a larger barrier for me. Like, ooh, I don't even know if I really want to write a book like that, to pay to take a class to write a book. But one of the things that I came to is I don't have to be the world's greatest writer, because this is what editing is for. And I am much more happy to pay the price for somebody to edit my book and make sure that my grammatics are correct, and, commas, periods, punctuation, all that great stuff. Make sure the word usage is correct. I'd much rather pay a person to do that and let that be their expertise than to try to make that my expertise. What I will say is, this is, I do a thought of the day every day. And the thought of the day at one point this week talked something along the lines of, people only see where you are now. They don't see where you started. So though I didn't enroll in a writing class, I've been doing inspirational content, writing deep, thought-provoking posts for the past like 8 to 9 years. So I did invest a significant amount of time on how to clearly articulate my thoughts. No different than, like Brother Wade said, on having a YouTube show and you're going live and you get better at it. It doesn't get easier, but you get better at it. Yeah. That's exactly what this process has been for me. It went from writing a small post on Facebook, writing a larger post on Facebook, writing a post that I didn't think anybody was going to read because it was so long on Facebook, to understanding how those thoughts were organized and structured, to organizing the thoughts of a book, and then writing one chunk, writing the next chunk, writing a chapter. Same exact process. So I didn't go into a writing course before, but I do see how some of my process could be implemented into a writing course on how to structure and organize information if you haven't had 10 years of time of practice, because that's what I had. I had about 10 years of time to practice writing before I actually sat down to write this book.
Yeah, very good. Very good answer. Let's get to another question here. Our blind guy's wife says, cool. So there's a happy dance, a dance of gratitude, a groove going for your achievements. Keep celebrating you. Absolutely. I love that.
Appreciate it.
Another EP publishing company says that, Billy, get ready for the passive residual income that having this book will lead you into. You are an inspiration in showing others that all things are possible when you refuse to quit. I love that. That is absolutely a brilliant nugget, because not only that, right? Like, I think you've given some good tips on, what the book is about and stuff like that, and some of the intros part of it, and how people can really avoid some of the pitfalls that they may experience within their career, especially early on. I think a lot of this story comes into an inspiration of, guys, we all have information to share, right? And what I'm getting from this conversation today is really around, if you want to do something, like we always talk about it, if you want to do something, you just have to set the time aside, focus, and get it done. And that's what Billy did, right? He had a goal to publish a book, and he, wanted to get it done in a certain amount of time. He woke up every single day and he, wrote down everything that he wanted to write down that day and so forth. And he went through a process to learn what writing a book and publishing a book was about. And then after that, he, completed the book. Now he's, in a grand stage in the process of selling that book as well, too. That's going to be something that's going to be around for the rest of his life and the rest of our lives as well, too. He's making history in doing something like this. And, with Billy talking about, what I'm really getting an inspiration on here is that, guys, like, we all have a story to tell, right? We all have something that we can share with others to inspire or to help others out. And that's what Billy is choosing to do with this book right here. And I think it's going to be, beautifully written, because I've seen how this guy writes. I've already seen how he's able to motivate even, myself and others as well on his channel. I know this is going to be a fantastic book, guys. Join the Patreon, Brother Christian says. Go ahead and join the Patreon. Have access to Antoine and the BH community. Absolutely. I appreciate you, brother. Wealth Talk in the house. That's interesting. In another EP published in First Row, your transparency is absolutely fire. Brandy Stevens says, I tuned in today to learn tips to eventually fire my job and hire my passion, but what I've received in the return was confirmation on writing my story. Thank you. Absolutely. That's the message that I'm getting to, Ms. Brandy, as well. Like, seriously, you got to write your story. And that story could be, whatever your life situation is or whatever it is that inspires you to continue to move on and to get people moving on as well, too. But I think that's fantastic. Carolyn says, see that conversation. Tangeray, I appreciate the $10 super chat. This is an incredible show, gentlemen. Cheers to both of you and your accomplishments. Very inspirational. Christian says, do you have any social media platforms that we can follow and promote your company and book?
Oh, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and sometimes on Twitter at First Row. If you go First Row on Instagram, it's going to take you to my page. It's always 1STWROE, all one word. You go on Instagram, you'll find me. You go on LinkedIn, you'll find me. You go on Facebook, you'll find me. Those are the platforms that I'm primarily on. And I do some content there as well. You can also find me on YouTube on First Row, not firstrow.com, but on First Row as well.
Awesome. Wholeheartedly, Tish says, Brandy, the same. Yeah. Well, see, another inspiration.
Let's go. I can't wait to fill my bookshelf with all these books. So don't be pump faking.
Cisco V says, order place. I appreciate that, Cisco V. Absolutely. Tara Michelle, facts. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys, spending this Saturday morning coffee talk with us. Obviously, Brother Roe is a good brother of mine, and I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to come on here and discuss, a big, great accomplishments. I am so proud of this brother for, putting in the hard effort, putting in the time. He said he was going to do something, and he actually did it, right? And that's the thing where we, it's imperative that we, set goals for ourselves, but we also reach those goals. One of the things that I talk about in my Patreon is, 2020 is about no excuses. There's no excuses, guys. You're going to say you're going to do something, let's get it done. Brother Roe has always been a person that's always delivered on all of his promises and so forth, and just constantly climbing the ladder himself. And I'm very proud of you, brother, for coming on here and sharing your story, as well as your wonderful accomplishment, something that I look forward to doing one day in my life. And I know I have a coach now, right? And that's the thing where when you see people having success, this is another thing. When you see people having success doing things as great as what we're talking about today, there's a level of, success and a level of gratitude that you have in yourself for being surrounded with these people, but involved with these people and knowing these people and wanting to celebrate these people. But there's also a level of, how can I even do something great in my life as well, too, and leave my history behind. Right. And it's not a comparison. It's just saying, for the most part, when you surround yourself with people who are achieving, you want to continue to achieve as well, too. And when you're around, people who are continuing to push the boundaries and do some really wonderful things, you're going to be wonderful and do some wonderful things in your life as well, too. So when Billy, told me about this book, man, my mind started, triggering like, holy crap, man, that's freaking wonderful. I got to do that one day, probably when I'm 50, but one day it's going to happen. One day it's going to happen. So, I love the fact that, I have people like yourself who are in my network, who I care about deeply and who continue to have success. And I want to make sure that I'm part of that success as well, too. So guys, as I mentioned, go out there and pick up a copy of that book. Go ahead and read it. Matter of fact, when I get my copy, because I've already bought it already, I'm going to potentially even have a book club with, my group of people, my family, my sisters, or something like that. So, I'm looking forward to giving Billy some feedback on it and learning as much as I can from the book as well, too. And being able to share some of the insights with some of our Patreon members as I continue to read through the book and so forth. So, Billy, what do you want to leave us with, brother?
Leave you with gratitude, man. I always appreciate you, brother. You hit a lot of key points. We are here to support one another. There is nothing that I can't see you calling me needing that if I have it, I wouldn't provide it for you. I appreciate you bringing me onto your channel and with your audience to share this project, man. It's an experience that in order to get it out there, I have to reach out and tap my network to be able to reach out and tap their network. So I definitely appreciate you for that. For everybody, the wonderful questions. I definitely appreciate that the sentiment from this is not simply just buy the book, but it's that you have a story. First Road really has always been about people sharing stories. We before we came to this technological era, we always shared and transferred knowledge via fireside stories. So I just really encourage everybody who feels like they want to write a book, even if all you do today is write a journal entry about what that book might be about. Doesn't mean it has to be about that, but it might be about. Start planting those seeds, just like how I said I had to move slowly away to where I can get to the place where I'd fire my job or living within my means, whatever it may be. Start planting those seeds. Start taking some intentional time out of your day, out of your life, out of whatever. Because like Brother Antoine said, at the end of the day, this story, this book, this story is forever cemented in history. Mm-hmm. It's not going anywhere. I can't take it out of the world now that it's out there. Mm-hmm. And so that'd be what I want to leave the audience with. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the questions, very thoughtful questions. I hope you guys are as inspired as I was when I was writing this book. I hope you guys take that inspiration into the day and maximize the use out of it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, you guys have a good rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much for joining Brother Roe and I on this Saturday morning coffee talk. And you know how we do it, guys. And until next time, y'all. Peace.